DC, but by a few miles. But it's where all the research is. Lots of buildings. I'm sure that was quite a responsibility we have.
Okay. Welcome to First Universalist. My other...
You want to put the microphone in that?
I don't know if the microphone will work with this one or not. My other phone, for some reason, won't. It wants me to redo. I'm not sure this one will even pick it up. So, yeah, I'm not even going to put it in. Minor problem. I'm not going to worry about it. We can get it on. We'll do it. Okay. Do we have any announcements? You want to give a report on the board or do that afterwards, or how are we going to?
We can do it afterward.
Okay. We'll speak afterwards. We'll do a quick report on the board and we'll put something online, kind of a brief overview of what we talked about. All right. Any other announcements? Fish Sunday. So if I forget, remind me when it's time for offerings. And Prelude.
I'm going to play something called The Lone Wild Bird.
The Little Wild Bird.
The Lone Wild Bird.
Lone Wild Bird, okay? Still haven't figured out my other phone, so we'll do that next week. Chalice lighting, honoring our common connections and our uniqueness. We gather this morning as one community, a community united by common ideals: love, justice, diversity, freedom, mutual care, and equity. Yet look around. Look at the faces of those around you. Each face represents an individual. Every one of us with our own story, needs, strengths, and faults. We light our chalice today, honoring our common connection and also the uniqueness that lives within each of us. Opening hymn 207. All right. Right, our affirmation, toward a place of wholeness. We are Unitarian Universalists. When we lift up our 7 principles, some of us think of them as a form of theology, but they are more important to our collective than that. They do not tell us what we should believe. They tell us how we should be. They tell us how we should act in the larger world and with each other. We are brought here today by the fact that Unitarian Universalism has fallen short of the image that was presented to the world and to many of those who embraced this religion. But we are also brought here today by the truth that Unitarian Universalism has shifted course to move toward a place of wholeness, a place that perhaps never existed for us as a denomination. It has been a long and sometimes unforgiving road to today, but we are here today because we are mindful of that past and because we have hope for the future. We want the practice of this faith to be a fulfilling manifestation of its promise. Open your hearts, seek new ways of understanding. Come, let us worship together. That was written before an annual meeting that was pretty fractious about the changes in the church. And the reason I put it in is there is another one coming up now, another annual meeting, which has more complaints and more changes going on. Change is part of the life of any organization. Nothing ever stays the same. And each of us has input on what that change looks like and whether we accept or don't accept the change. So, that's where we are for today. Joys and concerns. We have our sunflowers for Ukraine. That has not been in the news much. It's been crowded out, but things are not going well. The Russians are advancing. They are still bombing cities with drones and missiles. Innocent people, civilians are being killed on the right and left. So we just have to maintain hope in that case. Israel, I think Hamas is now going to Egypt for talks, so there may be some progress there. Everybody has put pressure on Israel, but I'm not sure Israel will respond to that. So we'll have to keep that in our prayers, in our hearts and minds. Haiti, nothing about Haiti, but we know that the situation there is still dire. And I don't have anything, does anybody have any local? Anything that needs to be brought up? Yes?
It's interesting to me about Haiti because when Jeff was posted there, that was his first posting in the Foreign Service. And Dave and I went down and we took a nephew with us and we had a wonderful time visiting in Haiti. And boy, it has really changed since.
Haiti is degenerated and on, and it's even with UN help trying to stabilize the situation. And the strange thing is it's connected right next door to the Dominican Republic. And the Dominican Republic seems to go along pretty normally. So I find it hard to explain exactly what is going on. Any population, any country gets the government that their people either support or don't support or vote for or whatever else. The people of Haiti don't seem to be able to get behind a legal government that takes care of the people. Gangs are running Haiti. And I know gangs are hard to resist when they use violence, but there is a reason that you have organization, there's a reason you have government, the reason you have votes. We don't let gangs run the world, or we try not to. So I'm not sure, I really don't know what the problem is there. But a candle for Haiti continuing. All right, anything else? All All right, one last candle for those hopes and fears, those problems that have not been brought forth, or we've been afraid to bring them forth, or we don't even know that they're there, and we want to talk about them, and once we figure out how to do it. Okay, our children's story, well, we're doing, community is what we're doing. I talk a lot about community, and community seems to be very important, but I kind of realized that I never really defined community or thought much about it. So I did a little bit of research on what community consists of, and we're going to start on that today. There is no end of community. The reason that brought me to this was I went to the dedication of the community center for the LGBTQ plus people of Darke County. I'll show you some pictures and we'll talk about it a little bit as we get there. The parking lot was completely full onto the grass. The inside of the building was, yes?
Tell me again, what was the meeting?
It's the LBGT, it's for gay people in Darke County. It's a welcome center, a place to meet. And they emphasize, it's across from, it's next to Bargie's down on Schweitzer Road, across from the concrete supply plant there. It's the little building, I'll show you a picture of the building. The building doesn't face the road, the building kind of runs sideways to the road, and the parking lot faces the building. I think there's like a radiator repair shop or something next door. This was just opened up. We've contributed, well, I contributed in the name of the church, but I contributed the money. And we need to decide as a church if we want to keep if we want to keep doing that or if we want to increase it. Let me get to there, and then we'll talk about it as we go through it, because we may end up talking more about that than the idea of community. The reason I brought that up is that is a real sense of what community is. People who have the same goals in mind, not always the same path, and not always the same understanding of what the goals are, but at least a dedication to be loyal and supportive of the group that they belong to. The reason I kind of got onto that was thinking about the shrinking religions, and that's what we're going to do a little bit here right now, maybe.
If you were to concoct a vision of a small church in a small town, you might envision this: a half-mile of cornfields leading to a tiny white building.
What do you think this story is about?
I think the story is about the lack of interest in religion in America as a whole.
Paul Costin is the minister of Ragsdale Church of Christ, or he was, until he closed it this past March. But the story of his church and of religion in America has many layers.
You can't have a church with 8 people.
Is that how many live?
I mean, it's
Even a church with barely one room has queues for 100. Ragsdale Church of Christ opened in the early 50s, right around when church attendance soared nationwide, right before it began to fall.
Church membership trends mirror white population trends in the United States.
Christina Lizardi-Hajbi is a professor at Denver's Iliff School of Theology.
You had 100 children in Sunday school. You had adults whose not only religious lives, but professional and civic lives were related to the church itself.
Ragsdale was built to represent a small town. Today, that town is no longer its own. It's part of Manchester, Tennessee, an hour south of Nashville. Manchester holds 12,000 people. It's the home of Bonnaroo, and over the years, its churches have sapped Ragsdale's congregation.
We have people that will drive 30 miles to Murfreesboro just for a hamburger. And if they'll drive 30 miles for a hamburger, they will drive 5 miles to worship God.
Costin had ministered at Ragsdale for 19 years. By the end, the only remnants of the old town were the church and the cemetery. Costin points to a recent Gallup poll. It found for the first time in the poll's 80-year history, church membership among American adults is below 50%. Online, you'll find numerous headlines declaring difficult days ahead for institutions of faith. But then, the layers.
It doesn't necessarily mean that religion is dying.
Lizardi Hajbi points to a different poll, a Pew Research poll that found 4 out of 5 U.S. adults believe in God. 9 out of 10 believe in some form of higher power.
Where we have these structures that we've had for decades, these buildings that we've had, all of that is getting upended. Individuals still seek meaning, and they still seek to create meaning out of their lives.
For many, the small church in the small town is a timeless symbol of faith and community. But as small towns dwindle and small churches close, those still there must find faith and community without them.
I come back at least once a week.
So you come by and you get out and you walk,
No, I show up and look.
and then it's off to whatever you
It's
do.
off whatever we do. You try to radiate in your community. But hey, we're here. If you need us, we're here.
In Manchester, Tennessee, I'm Matt Crow.
And the reason we bring that up is we are facing the same thing at New Madison. The dwindling membership, dwindling interest in town. Interestingly enough, at the meeting in Greenville, at the Fellowship Center, the Welcome Center, I gave the blessing, and I'll give you a, let's see, if I don't think I wrote, maybe I wrote it down. This is a blessing that Tara wrote. And this is a blessing for the LGBTQ Center as we come together to bless this place for the ways in which lives may be enhanced, journeys enriched, and every person cherished. We now offer the blessing of the Divine Spirit who creates all life and cherishes each being. May all those who come to this place experience wholehearted acceptance with strength for the journey. Be blessed in the spirit of life and the grace of love. That was done by Tara, which I think is pretty eloquent. And they invited, actually there was a non-denominational minister there who gave a real long blessing, and then Tara's was real short. And they allowed me to announce that I was there representing the New Madison First Universalist. And I had people come up to me afterwards and say, we live in New Madison and we're interested in a church. So I invited them to come today, and you see the result, which is why the churches are not growing. So very nice people. Her child was about 13 or 14, and I'm definitely going through some changes and some struggles for identity, and they needed support, and I offered them our support wholeheartedly, as well as anybody else. I even left materials. I didn't realize we had a lot of materials out here in front to describe Unitarian Universalism, so I left that there. So let's go into the presentation here. I'm going to do a little bit about community, and then we'll talk about that place. This is an actual picture of the front of the building, and that's Schweitzer Street out there. What makes a real community? Community is one of those soft, fuzzy words that many people do not fully understand and even find alienating. It is a word that gets used loosely, its meaning confused and distorted. So what is meant by community? Community and culture are often confused. They are not the same. Culture is the attitudes, customs, rituals, values, beliefs, arts, and social institutions, a way of life passed down to future generations. Each group has a culture, good or bad, no matter what. But that does not make it a community. We talk about communities of practice and communities of interest, self-organized networks of people with common agenda, cause, or interest, who collaborate by sharing ideas, information, and other resources. They can coalesce around sports, books, movies, any leisure activity, work, anything that can bring people together in communities. We also talk about virtual communities that consist of participants in online discussion forums, such as Zoom groups discussing topics of mutual concern, or actually attending church at a distant place. These are all communities, but they are not necessarily communities in the full sense of the word. So what is a community? At a basic level, it can be defined like this: a group of people who share something in common. The full concept, however, has several dimensions of meaning. Each aspect needs to be in place for a community to be considered what is called a real community. A group of people who share something in common. A company or organization can be thought of as a community. People who work for the same organization have that organization and the success of that organization in common. If you work for IBM, you can be said to be part of the IBM community. A community could be where you live, your local community, a religion, a Christian or other community, a culture, a British or American or Latin community, a place, a village community like New Madison, a profession, a scientific community, or more broadly, the international community, the business community, or the financial community. Care about what we have in common. Just because a person shares something in common with someone else does not mean they care about it. To be part of a real community, you need to care about what it is you have in common. Care about each other. To be in a real community, not only do you need to care about the community, but you also need to care about and respect each other. You need to be loyal to one another and build healthy relationships. Not many communities genuinely have this characteristic. Villages are small communities, but I question whether the people who live there really care that much for each other. In business, a community of practice meets the interaction criteria, but people don't necessarily care for each other. A social club might be an excellent example, however, of a community that does care. They interact regularly. You can share something in common that you care about, and you can care about each other. But if you don't frequently interact with each other, you're not in a real community. The scientific community or local community are examples of where not everybody in those communities interacts. You have to be passionate about a common purpose. To be in a real community, you need to be doing something together that is worth doing and makes belonging to that community matter. You need to be passionate about the purpose. The community needs to have a purpose. You need to have shared core values. Although not everyone's values will ever be the same, nor is it a good thing if they are the same, it helps if many of the community's core values are shared. Care about the community as a whole. Although someone may be part of, say, a local community in that they live in a particular locale, if they do not care about that community or do not interact in any way with their neighbors, they cannot be said to be part of that real community. You need to take an active social role in building and sustaining the community to which you belong. Being in community is much more than belonging. It's about doing something together that makes belonging matter. We also talk about being in community and having a sense of community or community spirit. This is what it means to be in a genuine community, a feeling of belonging, of togetherness. You can be a member of the community in that you share the same things in common, but fail to be in a community because you just don't care. We can't build a community. Communities are complex systems. We should view them as ecosystems, as ecosystems. They grow, they evolve. They cannot be designed and constructed like a building or like a Lego community. They cannot be built like that. We can create conditions in which communities can thrive and flourish. We can nourish them, but we cannot build them. You can't make someone love you. You can't force respect. You can't mandate care. You can't command honesty. You can't create sensitivity. And you can't build community. It is something that grows of a consequence of a contextual relationship, more like a meadow than Lego building blocks. A community is like an organic living thing that grows and takes its own way It can't be forced in any one direction or another. Trust. Members have to trust that truth is important, not just to speak the truth, but to hear the truth and to actively listen to the truth. A conversation among a group of community builders about conflict in communities talked about different tactics on how to deal with conflict once it arises, and people provided a variety of approaches. All agreed conflict in groups is unavoidable and will arise if the group exists for more than just a few weeks. In fact, most felt that conflict wasn't just a necessary nuisance, but actually played a vital role in the evolution of the group. If the group has any aspirations to exist for a longer period of time, it will require some conflict to mature and strengthen. All right. A real community is a reason for being, a common enemy, and this is where we kind of get into, I'll show you some signs here. This is the community building, and this was at Wednesday at 5:30 or 6. And what do you notice about this picture?
Sheriff Patrol,
2 sheriff's deputies were there. Why were they there?
just in case.
No, you can't see very well. But out here, do you see the guy holding the sign?
Protesters.
There were picketers with handmade signs, anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ. There was like 4 of them walking up and down the street. People would drive by and shout things, roll down their windows and shout things and blow their horns. So just being gay in Darke County is putting your life on the line. It's making a statement, and showing up at a place like this, at a time like this, is also making a statement. And I took a couple more pictures, but I had people come up to me and say, please don't put these pictures online, whatever you took, because my child is in your picture, and I don't want my child to be identified by the general public, to be bullied in school, or to be tormented or followed in public. That is the state of mind of the LGBTQ population in Darke County. That is the thing that they are standing up against, and I'm hoping that we as a church will stand with them in that. You need to let me know if we're not in agreement on that, because I'll quit using the church's name. They asked us to contribute for a Bible study, or if anybody wanted to do a book study or anything like that. I said we would be happy to do that. I said I'm not exactly sure where the Bible study would go, but I would be happy to use the resources I have, which is my wife, and we'd be happy to talk about it if they want to do that. They have quite an agenda there. It's pretty amazing. They are open during the week in the afternoons and evenings. They are also open on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights from 10 o'clock till 2 in the morning. Why would that be? The time of despair is late night on a weekend when you feel alone and abandoned. The community center is open and staffed. If someone feels abandoned and lonely and needs someone to talk to, there is someone there. They are open for that. And they made a point, Ryan Acker was the chairman of their board, made a point of saying the community center is open for everyone. You don't have to be gay to go there. You don't have to be gay to support it. You don't have to be gay to go and take part in it. They have karaoke nights. They're talking about having a drag night, which that should be interesting. I bet there'll be lots of protesters out for that, if that actually comes to fruition. They're talking about having a movie night. They're just having a lot of activities going on, and a lot of people are taking part in it. And the other thing is they have free counseling on Tuesdays from 6 to 7 in the evening. There will be a counselor there. If anybody needs counseling for any reason, there will be somebody there to talk to who is a professional counselor. Okay. The real test of community is a reliance on leadership, the test of leadership. Sometimes lightning strikes and everything is illuminated, and sometimes the storm just passes without light or growth. Sometimes there's conflict in the church, and the church manages, or any organization, manages to grow from that and learn from it and become stronger. And sometimes people try to ignore it and forget that it happens, and it just disappears. I'm one of those that wants to face what happens, learn from what happens, and try to improve the sense of community. That sense of loyalty, that sense of dependence on one another, that sense that we can trust one another. That only comes from communication and being open. And that's when we talk about not being afraid to say something, not being afraid to listen to something, and not being afraid to actually hear something that needs to be said, and then working it out in a rational manner. Okay, let me get you a couple more. Anybody recognize this?
Pleasant Hill.
Pleasant Hill. A real test of community, 1990 in August. Does anybody know what happened in Pleasant Hill in 1990, in August of 1990? There was a bank robbery. You remember that? The local bank was robbed. The person who did it shot and killed 2 members of the community and severely wounded, critically wounded the 3rd member of the bank. What makes it important was that every one of those persons was a member of the Church of the Brethren that my wife was the pastor of. The person that shot them, the persons that were shot, the grandparents of the shooter, the mother of the shooter, they all went to church in the same church. And Tara was called at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to come to the bank to minister to all the people who had been wounded, shot, and killed. The one lady who was sent to Miami Valley in critical condition lived and survived. And the torment that she goes through is just amazing. The grandparents of the person who did the shooting were lifelong members of the church. Their daughter lived with them, as did the child who was the shooter. He was only 17 years old. His mother said, "We're desperately short of money. We have to have money." So his only thought was, go rob the bank. That's where the money is. The question nobody can answer is, why did he shoot everybody in the bank? Why did he shoot them in the head, every one of them? Did he think he could get away with it, that nobody would know? The dye pack exploded in his money bag. He left the money in the parking lot in a trash can. It's a matter of insanity. He's in jail for life in Columbus now, or not Columbus, but wherever the Ohio State prison is. But the grandparents were devastated. The mother was devastated. The mother committed suicide 5 years later. It's just a tragic tale, and the grandparents ended up at the Brethren's home, and they are long gone now. They were old at the time. But what do you do with a community where everything happens in the community? That was the strength. And Tara is a pretty amazing person. To have dealt with that. We had Channel 7 reporters at the church. We had a special vigil that night, and she had to talk to them. She had to talk to the relatives. She had to talk to the police. She had to give them backgrounds on all the people involved in this. That was a test of the community. And yet the Pleasant Hill Church of the Brethren still has problems. It's still not a growing church. That community doesn't grow any stronger from that. But I think through her ministrations, I think at least survived that episode. So that's about all I've got there. Any questions? Any comments?
I'm just making an observation in terms of community. And many of you know I was an elementary school principal, but that actually followed an experience as a high school teacher. So what I learned about community was in the kindergarten classroom. As a principal, observing young children coming to school and learning rules and regulations, proper behavior and improper behavior, respect for others, courtesy, all those wonderful values that we take for granted, and the parents do a phenomenal job in teaching that. But when they're actually all together, that indeed was a community. I learned so much from that experience, and I really marvel at kindergarten teachers. And I speak because my experience was at the high school level. But those seeds established at the kindergarten level, we are a group. We have to conform. We're young, very young, but we have to conform for the sake of everyone else. Just a tremendous learning opportunity for me, and I thought I would share that.
And that's very important. And I don't know where this came from, and I'm not sure whether my mind is playing tricks on me, but I think there's a guy named Robert Fulghum who wrote a book called everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten.
He did.
Yeah,
He
okay.
did.
And that had a pretty big impact on me, because that's been years and years ago, and I can't remember stuff I did yesterday, so why I can remember that, I don't know. But yeah, education and conformity and group conformity, or group learning to work together as a group, and that's, we learn that our whole lives. It doesn't stop when you leave kindergarten, it doesn't stop when you leave high school. You keep on learning, and every organization you belong to has the same problems, the same conflicts, the same people who bully people, the same people who are afraid to speak, who don't contribute, or who want to contribute but don't know how, the same people who will put down somebody who tries to contribute. Some organizations can manage to overcome that and grow and become better organizations, and some organizations, and many of I've been a part of, they take the easy road out. This is the rules, this is what you do. They don't listen to what any suggestions, any of the needs. They just pass the rules down from the top down, and everybody knows what those organizations are like. If they're ruled from the top down, they generally are not very successful. So, all right, anything else? This is a topic that's going to go on and on. We need to keep discussing, particularly as we're into this period now. We're talking about, as we'll hear in the board report, of what to do with the church and declining membership. And part of that I'm beginning to realize might have been my fault. Last week I talked about some things that upset people, and if there was anything I could do about that, I would be happy to. I'd be happy to quit doing this. If somebody else wants to stand up in front and speak for the church, I'd be more than happy to let somebody else do it. But I don't want there to be nobody here on a Sunday morning. So if you have suggestions for me, or demands, or whatever, let me know. And if you have suggestions for people who need to speak, I'm not having too much luck finding people who are willing to speak. I don't know I don't know what the deal is, whether people just don't have the time anymore. But, and Derek is not even scheduled in the next month or so I got to get a hold of him and see what's going on. So that's where we are. Community is important. No matter where you find it, you have to make your own, and feel free to be a part of our community if you want to, and join and make a contribution. Let us know what's important and what's not important.
Tim, if I may also add, in terms of community, just a little more feedback for those who may or may not know this. Ohio's school curriculum for social studies is all based on the premise of expanding community. Now, a teacher could probably, other social studies people could give you various definitions, but it's all based on the fact that we may start as a very small community in terms of a kindergarten classroom, but our communities expand to something called towns, okay, and counties, and states, and government, and other countries. And all that is embedded in the Ohio Social Studies Standards. So rest assured, at least in terms of public school students, they're getting a wonderful overview, and the biggest one of all, my responsibility as a citizen in a community called the United States of America.
And we need to applaud that, and unfortunately, part of the pressure that they're putting on the educational is to take away that sense of critical thinking. Part of being in a community and part of being a contributing member of a community is critical thinking. You have to be aware of what's going on. You have to think about what's going on. You have to say, this could be done to make it better. I'm not going to demand that it be done to make it better, but let me make this suggestion. Let's talk about it. If we agree, fine. If we don't agree, we'll go on to the next suggestion. We keep on working, everybody contributing to make it better. And I see people actively trying to reduce and eliminate critical thinking. They want to shovel stuff in, and the basic pablum of patriotism and religion without thinking about it, without asking any questions, and that is leading us in the wrong direction. Once again, that's my opinion. And anybody else is welcome to come up and give their opinion, and I would invite them and encourage them to do that. Okay, time for the offering. This is the first Sunday, so we have a fish Sunday offering in the fish plate. And if anybody wants to put money under the door, that would be an interesting thing to see. So, what are we going to hear?
This is called Time After Time.
Time After Time.
Judy Stein, and the lyrics were Sandy Cobb.
Okay.
Let's see here.
right, our closing hymn.
Number 308.
308.
303, I said.
303, half of the 8.
If I can find it.
Beginning, maybe not in the same form, maybe not in the form that we anticipated, but it is still beginning. Changes abound around us, within us, between us, in our communities, our neighborhoods, and our beloved faith community. Changes abound. May we find the balance point we need as we move through the ever-changing world. The balance between the old and the new, between the known and the unknown, between the familiar and perhaps the bold and risky possibilities that may be there, waiting. Postlude.
This is Richard Rogers' speaking called Isn't It Romantic?
Isn't it romantic? All right. Very nice. What would we do without music, as I keep saying, but fervently believe? They may recognize the picture. Put it together with community. You know there are what they call equestrian communities. Communities where everybody has a horse. Not everybody, but... And they go to McDonald's on their horses. The horse goes up to the drive-in window. I don't think the horse pays, but the horse puts his head in the window, and they actually have horse treats for the horses in these towns. And not all of them are out west. There's a bunch of them down in the Carolinas and places where, and I think probably you have to have a fair amount of money to have an equestrian town. Just to have a horse alone, even for a saddle horse, is not cheap. But it still would be an interesting place to live where everybody had a horse. All right, our last candle, we're leaving it lit for all those hopes and dreams, all those fears and trepidations that are unspoken or maybe spoken but not heard. I'm going to make coffee. Paula's not here, but I have actual brewed coffee, but I haven't put it on because I thought she might be here. So I'll go back and put the coffee on before I put all this stuff away. And hopefully next week I can get this another phone figured out, and we'll be back on Landscape for Facebook. I tried to log on today on the phone that I always use, and it wouldn't, Facebook wouldn't let me log on, so who knows what's going on there. All right, that's the end of the service. Stick around for an update on the